what about the 2-inch transmission tapes for the War Games? Well, the junking authorization for these tapes for all 10 episodes of the War Games came on May 20th, 1971. But it was in good company as far as stuff being wiped, because it also on that day, the pilot, An Earthly Child, all 6 episodes of Fury from the Deep, all 8 episodes of The Invasion, they were all slated at that point to be wiped. And one of the things that's really missing, I think, is the Howard Da Silva intros. Anyone know what I'm talking about with the Howard Da Silva intros, right?
Inside a lighthouse in space, a mysterious plague is killing off the crew members one by one.
Here's one Who backing Channel 2. Have we heard from you?
Well,
Where was that recorded?
that's at the prom.
Oh, that is at the prom, okay.
I believe so. I don't. Here's the thing, I never went.
I was, that's why I...
Does it look familiar?
No.
Okay, maybe. Where there wasn't a lot of news about it coming out, but W.H. Smith, because it was a W.H. Smith exclusive, they finally put an ad out for it, but DWM didn't talk about it at all. Are you knitting a scarf? All right.
Are you doing a presentation?
No! I mean, you can clearly see that. And welcome to From the Archive, a British television vlog. My name is Greg Bakken. Normally, when I do these type of videos, the From the Archive videos, I don't do Doctor Who. I normally will grab some other series and talk about that or review some content. But I thought, you know, a lot of stuff is coming out. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I decided I'm going to actually review some Doctor Who content tonight. Now, you might be like, but Greg, you do Doctor Who videos all the time. And that's true. I do a series that I started in 2021, Doctor Who on BBC Video, which is probably one of my favorite things to do in the world. And the new one is on its way soon. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But what I really wanted to do was take a look at something here, and what I was going to look at here is the second story of Doctor Who to get a broadcast and eventual physical release by the same team that brought you the Daleks in color. And I wanted to share my opinion, share my thoughts on all aspects of it, as well as the differences I thought between the work done on the Daleks and the work done on this. Tonight, I am very happy to say that I am reviewing the War Games in color. Now, once again, I always have to say this. If someone would tell me I think I first saw the War Games way back in 1985, I would say. If someone told me that that you'd be able to see any of it in color, or that it'd be released on a form that far surpasses the look of videotape, or the fact that it would come in a metal case, I would be like, you're kidding me. I mean, in color, first of all, there's John Pertwee episodes not in color. That's obviously, things have changed quite a bit. Let's start off with the basics, the stuff that you all know about already. We all know that the War Games originally aired from April to May 1969, which made it a 10-part story. It's the final regular Patrick Troughton story, the end of his tenure, the end of his time as the Doctor. And as we know, too, at the time of the recording of the final episode, they did not have the next Doctor chosen. In fact, for a while, it looked like it's possible that this could be the end of the series itself. But, so by the time we get to episode 10 being recorded, John Pertwee was not contracted yet, so we don't have a formal regeneration, which plays a part in this this release. It's also the final black and white story broadcast, which of course this seemingly wants to rectify. And this is what brings us up to December of 2024, when a heavily edited down version of the stories was broadcast on BBC4. And if I'm not mistaken, the original broadcast of the recolorization was 90 minutes. And so you have that, and it's taking 10 episodes and editing it down to 90 minutes. Incredible. But we'll share thoughts on that in a bit, okay? What I do want to share is the radio times from that broadcast. I do share radio times at another War Games video that I've done for the original broadcast of the series. What's interesting about this is that none of the War Games was ever missing per se, but it doesn't mean that some stuff was found to make this release as good as it could be. We'll talk about that as well. Now, normally in this stage of the game, I'd like to share what the previous releases for the War Games was. And you may have noticed at the top of the video, I play a trailer for something very special. Now, so far in 2025, there hasn't been an official release of a new video for Doctor Who on BBC Video. The last one that we officially released would have been The Two Doctors, that I don't remember if it was at the tail end of 2024 or just sneaking into 2025. Regardless, there hasn't been anything new, and that's because of we're working on, we being me, I don't know why I said we, I'm working on the 10th planet right now, and I'm waiting on what I consider to be a very important interview that we're going to put in there as well. So things are a little bit slower, but I think, patience to those, good things come to those who wait, I hope. Hopefully I'm not over exaggerating how cool I think this video will be. But at Council Room, which is a Doctor Who convention out in Bloomington, Minnesota, I was asked to do a live version of Doctor Who on BBC Video. And as it happens, I chose the War Games. And that was probably one of the most fun I've ever had, because it was in front of a live audience, and the audience was very receptive. And it's not something that I'm releasing publicly, only because, first of all, it really technically belongs to Council Room. But secondly, I wanted something, and I re-edited a little bit and added better graphics and stuff to it. And I put it up as an exclusive on my Patreon. And I did so because I really thought it'd be fun to give the folks who have supported me via Patreon something very special to me at least, that isn't going to be released anywhere else. Am I going to do a video on the War Games at some point? Possibly, I don't know, but there is a lot of other Doctor Who stories to get to first. But as you can see behind me, I brought some friends. I brought some of the other releases, and we talk about them in the video. As always, hate to beg, but if anyone is interested in joining my Patreon, it is as low as $3 a month, and we don't just talk Doctor Who. I'm opening up another track of British television videos that we're going to be uploading and enjoying, hopefully, and would love you to join us and take part, because I think I'm very proud of the Patreon. It's turning into a little community, and the people who have supported me through the years, I cannot thank you enough for everything that you have done. And in fact, here they are right now. So we got that commercial out of the way. So with that being said, to find out more about the previous releases, you can either look online or enjoy the video that I put together. So let's talk about the new release about this. So what we're looking at here for this version of the War Games is very simple. It starts off with 16 millimeter telerecordings. And with that, you add to it additional CG shots. You add new music. You add some new stock shots. There's some voiceovers that have been added to it to try to tell the story as best it can in a digestible format, taking 10 episodes and bringing it down to 90 minutes, or in this release, 95 minutes. And so there's a lot here to kind of take into it, right? And to know what needs to be put into it to create this this video and this presentation for us to enjoy. Let's talk about the quality here of the picture that we are looking at. The quality is good, and then the quality is really good. And what I mean by that, it's almost too good. And like I said, we're looking at a variety of sources. Once again, we're looking at 16 millimeter telerecordings of a videotaped episode. And so, and if it's location footage in the telerecording, apart from some sequences that we're going to talk about here, they are even of poorer quality. The scenes recorded in studio are much better. They look very good, and the way that this stuff has been transferred over time, and the technology that's come with that has really come a long way. And that's really where this differs quite a bit from the Daleks in color, because the Daleks in color, which, I can't stop without, showing off everything, right? The Daleks in color here is from a 405 line videotape to telerecording, where the War Games is a 625 line videotape to telerecording. The quality is just going to be much better, and it really shows. And I can't help but imagine for the folks doing the colorization that had to help in some way. I could be wrong. I'm not a colorist, but to me, I would think that would help quite a bit to have more definition in it. Now, I'm going to talk about the colorization a little bit further down the road here. But what frustrates me, and it did this with the Daleks as well, is that there's absolutely no attempt made to even out the sharpness from any sort of new footage, like the CGI or, even like the titles, to the actual historic recording of the War Games, the actual episodes. When you go from a CGI piece back to the original episodes recorded in 1969, there is just a huge quality jump that keeps taking me out of it. I never understand how you could look at that and be like, oh, that's fine. That'll be good. That's good enough. When you're putting so much effort into it to begin with, that you are not being like, I can kind of rough this up a little bit, maybe dull it down so that it's what we call grading, right? And this isn't technically grading, but at least you're trying to even out the shots. And I'm surprised that doesn't happen. I mean, to me, in the Daleks, the first shot where the TARDIS lands is the worst for me. It's just absolutely not the way that I would want to do it, that's for sure. So I never understand why it just wasn't dulled down a little bit. Now, the colorization itself, I think on a whole, is a lot better than the Daleks in color. As I mentioned above, the extra dimension in the line structure has to help, right? It has to help them a little bit. There are a couple shots on the space station at the end of the War Games when Zoe is returned back to the space station, and she's talking with Tanya on board, and I could see how the 2-inch videotape could look. I mean, that to me, the color scheme looked pretty natural. I thought, oh gosh, that does. I feel like we're watching a video tape color recording from the late 60s, and not a whole lot of those exist for the BBC. In fact, I kind of got like out of the unknown sort of vibes from it, because right towards the end of their first run of episodes, and they take a break, some of those are made into color videotape. They're recorded on color videotape, and you can kind of see those similarities, and I really like that. I also thought that the color palette used was better than the ones in the Daleks. I just felt like in the Daleks, Barbara had this atrocious color for her blouse, and luckily they kept Zoe's like raincoat a sensible color. It's not like a bright yellow. I'm not sure why the warlord needed color glasses, but whatever. And it looked like the color glasses changed. It's fine. It adds a little dimension. I don't necessarily think it's necessary, but it's that's the creative process. How we're going to plus this to make it different than the broadcast version. I felt that the Warzone interiors were very sympathetic to how I think they should look like, or how I could imagine them to look like. So I felt that was good. It's funny because I think we all have our own predetermined ideas of how this black and white stuff should look. And whether it's based off of color photographs we've seen or how it looks in our mind. So when these poor people who are colorizing it, and they'll never win, when they're colorizing it, and it's not the palette that some of us think it should be, or the colors some of us think it should be, it's not because they're wrong. It's not because we're right or wrong. We just have a preconceived notion of what this stuff should look like. I do contend, though, if you're on a dead planet such as Skaro, the stuff behind you shouldn't be green, because that means to me life. But perhaps not. Perhaps other people see it the wrong way, or a different way. Excuse me. I think what's interesting is I think some of the colors are so off in some of these, but at the same time, you look at color television in the 60s, and you run into some stuff that's very garish color palettes. And so I think of stuff like even like when the Avengers went into color, and especially like for me, it seems like the Linda Thorson series. Just a lot of very bright and colors that I'm not sure that I really care for, but it's because color television was new, and they're making the most of it. And I think you could put that argument together that maybe, yeah, obviously color television is not new here, but the War Games in color is new. The idea of Doctor Who being colorized is new, so they're going to do something, and they're going to do the best that they can and make it as colorful as possible. I'm not always going to be a fan of their color choices, but I can understand where they're going with that. This time, unlike with the Daleks, the color did not distract me from being engaged in the story for the most part. Everything was a natural color palette, and but obviously we're looking at stuff that's more natural anyway. It'd be weird to see a bright pink barn in the Civil War era, but you get my point. I mean, it's in the Daleks, once again, because we have this preconceived idea, there'd be choices made that'd be like, what on earth, in my opinion, only, of course, and it'd take me out of what I was watching. And I didn't get that this time. I did not get that at all this time. And I actually really appreciate it. Some of the color that I thought were a little bit off in it, I thought that when the Doctor, when he was on trial and he's showing the Time Lords his enemies, what he's dealt with in the universe, I didn't care for some of the colorization choices in there personally. Like for example, the I didn't care for the sky color on the planet Dulcus, or the weather station interior in the Seeds of Death. Now, once again, those are creative choices, and others watching it may have loved them, may have thought, "Oh, yep, this is exactly what I thought." Once again, you look at it. That's not how I see Dulcus, the color Dulcus. I believe it was a green sky, but you have the opportunity to make a green sky. What's the harm? I mean, it's those are, I think those are the choices that are being weighed with every creative decision that they put out there, right? So I find it very, once again, I would hate to actually work on any of this stuff, because sometimes you just know that no matter what you choose, it's never going to be the right choice, right? Anyway, there's some extras on here that I wanted to go through, talk about real fast. The extra, so the way that the disc is laid out, you have the disc with the new Color War games, one disc that has all the new material on it, the Blu-ray, and then you have 3 other discs on there that are DVDs, and those are just a repackage of the war games from the 2009 DVD release. And we'll talk about that in a second. The audio commentary for the Blu-ray is with Russell T. Davis, Fraser Hines, Wendy Padbury, Benjamin Cook, Rich Tipple, and Mark Ayers, talking about everything about it. I didn't listen to the commentary. No offense to anyone on there. I'm not interested, but to be fair, I don't listen to a lot of commentaries, and at least it's there if I want it. I would never say that there is an extra that shouldn't be on anywhere. It's just just a personal choice. There's a model shots featurette, model making featurette. I mean, these are very cool. Chris Hayden interview with Radio Free Scaro. And you might be like, well, who's Chris Hayden? Well, Chris Hayden is the original film director on the War Games, and he had discovered 16 millimeter location film footage, like the amazing quality that's actual real film, not from a camera recording from a videotaped episode, so the generation is even further down. This is really high quality stuff, and there's more to it than I actually thought. So this is really interesting, and I was so happy that this has been found, and it's in the War Games in color, and it's you could tell it stands out. I mean, how can't you? And it's beautiful. Seeing it, they were very kind enough to include it all just as it is for the Blu-ray in black and white, and it's stunning and it looks great. And you just imagine, what if all location footage from the black and white era looked like that? That'd be pretty cool. Let's see here. There is the War Games in color trailer that I believe you would have saw on broadcast. There is an Easter egg on there. Back the days, we had to search for Easter eggs. Now it's just on the menu saying Easter egg. So it makes your job a little bit easier. You get a look at the color palettes for all the characters, which is kind of interesting. Concept art, which is fun. Photo gallery. And then talking about the 3 discs that is a repackage of the original War Games set. And I wanted to talk about this because a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but a number of people I've noticed saying, well, why didn't they give us HD masters of the 10 episodes of the War Games? I mean, first of all, why would it? So, okay, let's put aside something like the Web of Fear that had released them all on HD along with the animation. Let's put that to the side. I believe that because we have these fantastic collection sets coming out, it would make it, you need to have stuff that makes it special to buy those sets. And, it just, to me, makes no sense to include them in HD here when they're going to be re-released, hopefully not too much longer, on these collection sets. I also think the bigger part of it too is that a complete restoration of 10 episodes, not knowing where they are restoring episodes, you are probably looking at a different type of budget, and you're probably looking at a budget that exceeds what you want to do for the war games here for this set. Now, I could be completely off, but that'd be my guess. I don't ever expect, same with the Daleks. I heard the same argument with the Daleks. I really don't expect to see HD episodes of them included. With the Web of Fear, my guess is because they had the animation that they wanted to showcase. They want to put it on Blu-ray. You're not just going to put the animation in HD and put it out with everything else in SD. You're going to up-res all those, and how beautiful do those look? What you're doing here is simply making it so that you can watch the entire story. More than likely, if you are interested in watching the whole story, this SD DVD set will be more than good enough, because it also includes all the extras from the original DVD set. It's actually a pretty good deal. Some of us may not be happy about it because we already got it, but the focus here, of course, is the color version of the war games. I know people are going to be listening to me and they're just going to be like, well, you're wrong. That's fine. That's totally fine. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because they're not on here. They're going to be on the Season 6 collection set. So whenever that's going to happen, that's what we're going to have to wait for anyway. Let's talk about the covers here. So obviously, as you can see, I opted for the Steelbook version of the War Games, and of course, the War Games. What I failed to mention here is that it's available also as a 4-disc DVD set as well. The Blu-ray is the only way you can get the Steelbook, and also there's not only just a Steelbook to this, but there's also a regular version of like just regular style packaging. I know that fans are a little upset because there isn't a reversible cover to this. And I have my theories why to that. And so, just look at same with, like I said, same with the Daleks. I opted for the Steelbook for the Daleks too. I love these things. I really do. In fact, I would guess that every Doctor Who Steelbook that's been released, I own. That goes all the way back to all the original new series Blu-ray Steelbooks going back to Series 1. I have all of those, and most of them are actually still sealed. So that's kind of fun. And I think I started buying, well, no, I probably bought them from the beginning, to be perfectly honest, and just kept buying them as they came out. Now, just take a look at the packaging here real fast. Obviously, what do we call this? Like a J holder or something like that? I'm trying to remember. I could have looked it up, but here we are. And then you have this Steelbook. And once again, I love these. Could you imagine every Doctor Who story being released on a Steelbook? I would buy that in a heartbeat. I would prefer that more than the collection sets, personally. And they probably will, and they'll get people like me who says we're not going to buy these again. I'll be in there hook, line, and sinker. So this is, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't opened a lot of these. This is one of the first that is a 4-disc set, right? That's in a Steelbook. And so you have this, and so you have 2 discs on either side. They're set on top of each other. I'm not a big fan of that. In fact, my disc 3 here, which is episodes 6 through 10 of the DVD version of the War Games, it fell out. It actually is a little bit scratched. And once again, I don't care because I have the DVD release anyway behind me here. But I'm not a super big fan of how this is. And like the Daleks over there, that's a 3-disc set. And then of course, and I never actually looked at this. What is in here? Because this isn't all the stuff now. You have your little Doctor Who catalog. Oh, that's cool. Just a lot of stuff in there. Why not, right? Why not? So yeah, got that, and that's pretty much it. And I like it. I am going to say though, might be of a bit of a controversy here. I might like the art for the standard edition a little bit better than the art for the Steelbook. And this is great. And this is a is this meant to be a homage to World War One posters? I don't know. I mean, and you all can tell me. I don't know a lot about that sort of stuff. That's kind of what it looks like to me from the 1914, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah. So yeah, very, very. I still love it, and I love the feel of a Steelbook, and but I kind of like the cover artwork for the standard edition as well. Let's talk about my overall opinion on this release. We talked about colorization. We talked about technical aspects. But I want to talk just about, to me, does this work? First off, watching the War Games in color, I kind of set myself up to going into another dimension, so to speak. And why I'm saying that, and stay with me, is I know a lot of people are, I've read, like, I don't want to watch a truncated War Games. I don't want to watch a truncated Daleks. I don't want to watch them in color. That's not how it's meant to be. Just like with the Toby Jones Dad's Army film. I don't want to watch that. It's not Arthur Lowe. I get it. And I think that those are the type of things that really mar your objectivity. And I know people are going to be, especially talk about the Dad's Army film. You're wrong. We know good stuff. This is no, this is no Man in the Hour, but the thing is I just kind of put myself in there, like, the broadcast version of the War Games still exists. It's actually right over there. If I get scared during watching this, I can turn it off and go back to the 10-part version. I just kind of set that self up. So it's just knowing this is just a different presentation of a story that I know very well. And maybe being able to see a story I know very well in a different light may not be a bad thing. Give it a shot. Let's see what it looks like. That being said, I wasn't a huge fan of the Daleks in color. And matter of fact, I wanted to do a video like this for that last year. And I just felt, I'm not going to be a very positive person about it. And so I want to explain why while talking about the War Games as well. So I hope you'll indulge me while I talk about this a little bit. First of all, let's just say editing down the War Games to 95 minutes for this presentation in any kind of coherent manner, it's a Herculean effort. And I think it's done very well for what it is. Okay, for someone, and for Benjamin Cook to be able to have him sit down and be like, you're going to take 5 hours and we need 90 minutes of it, and really don't lose the threads, take what's important and make something watchable out of it. I mean, yeah, you did do it. But I do scratch my head over why the War Games. Obviously, we're talking about a very important Doctor Who story in the history of the series. Just like the Daleks was a very important story, the War Games really set the tone for the future in a lot of ways. So I can understand why that was chosen, yet it's 10 episodes that you have to cut down. Now, in my perfect world, I'd be like, well, do Tomb of the Cybermen. Well, my guess is that Tomb of the Cybermen is a fairly gray story, right? That would have fit the mark, time, the time schedule table there perfectly, but it's a very gray story, probably very little color to put into there. My next thought is, because I like Cybermen, why not the Invasion? You could cut that down, I think, very easily. or even Seeds of Death. But, ultimately they decided the War Games is the way to go, and that's just how it is. And with that being said, I think it just about pulls it off. But it moves very quickly. It's very fast. It's like we gotta rescue Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Here we go. Let's go. Now let's go we gotta find Zoe. Oh, there she is. Let's go. Stuff like that. Not quite like that, but it's not too far off. It's really it moves very quickly. And that really highlights the sort of like kind of whip around of what the War Games itself is, even at 10 episodes. It's just a lot of, we gotta rescue this person. Now let's rescue that person. Let's escape here. Let's try to break into here. But it works. I certainly wasn't bored. I didn't have time to be bored. It just moves so quickly. I was also very happy to see less flashbacks in the Daleks. Whenever would they be referencing something that already happened in the story, we'd see a flashback of it while they're talking about it, even if it was like 5 minutes ago. And it's like, I know I'm not super bright, but I do remember this. I do remember that happening. I don't need to see that, and I don't want to hear, well, it's for the younger audience. They're not dumb people. They can retain information. So and I understand it's possible that some of that was used as an editing crutch to help cover up cuts in the story. So I understand that, but we get a lot less of that here. In fact, what worked really well is that they were used in a way to help us understand where these characters come from. I only recall two, one being in Wheel in Space, and then one being the Australian censor footage from the Highlanders. And I thought those worked very well together. So I appreciate that quite a bit. There wasn't these ridiculous quick edit montages that the Daleks had. And Daleks may have only had one. And once again, I understand that you're trying to move the story along, but it was to me really not well done. And we didn't have any of that here. We did have other edit things that happened that I thought were actually pretty smart, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it moved everything along very nicely. Let me talk about the music here real fast. The music, once again, like in the Daleks, is nonstop. It is continuous. For some reason, Mark, whether he was asked to do so or felt that it needs it, it just is a constant soundtrack. But I feel it's better this time. I feel it's more complimentary to watch what I was watching. That's always a thing when people talk about, say, Murray Gold. I always hear this as like, well, Murray Gold tells us what to feel. I've never felt that, to be perfectly honest. But here, especially in the Daleks, I thought that a lot of times the music was contradictory to the action. They weren't going together. This time, I thought, I'm not, once again, just like with everything else I've been saying, I wasn't being pulled out of the story by it. Would I have preferred less music? I would have, actually, because I did notice it was there, but certainly nothing that was like, oh my gosh, this is, what was that about? Why was that in there? No, this was good. Even that music cue that everyone talked about wasn't as bad in there as I expected it to be. Although I refuse to see the war chief in that manner. Once again, we're looking at a War Games from an alternate universe, not the one that's, in my shelf where, where Space Pirates would be before it and Spearhead from Space would be after it. So it's okay there, right? It's okay. I have to keep telling myself it's okay. But it's fun. It's meant to be fun. and I appreciate it. Just like in the animations, there's little hints to some new series stuff, or the Master, I think, wanted posters in certain places. So be it, right? My overall rating for this, and my rating system is, just like my videos, convoluted. The highest is highly recommended, then recommended, watchable, and not recommended. And I consider the War Games personally recommended. I would recommend this as it's a nice version to have as an alternate to the broadcast version. It's nice to see other looks at something like the War Games, and I appreciate that. Though I'll tell you how this particular version of War Games ranks with me, okay? I had a file of this recording sent to me since December, since the day it aired, that someone sent me a very nice high-quality file for me to watch. And I only watched it now from this Blu-ray. So I didn't make a point to watch it. And this is nothing against the people who worked on this, whom some of these people are friends of mine. It just wasn't essential viewing for me. I don't know why. It just... Especially after the Daleks, I just thought, well, I'll get to it. I'm sure it's good. I heard right away a lot of people being very positive about it, more so than the Daleks. And I don't know if people learned from the Daleks, because I can't really imagine that, since this was probably well underway by the point that it aired. But I'll tell you what's interesting. It's odd, because if this would have happened somehow back in the days of VHS, when I was all about getting Doctor Who on VHS and getting all the newest versions of stuff, back when I was, getting NTSC tapes from PAL recordings and stuff like that, I would have moved heaven and earth to get a copy of this, which would have looked nowhere near as good as what this is. I mean, what I mean by that is I remember really trying to go out of my way to find Search Out Science. I mean, that's how pathetic that was back in the day, because it was new Doctor Who, a different take on Doctor Who, and that seemed to be the way to go. So I just find it funny. Now, for those of you who watch these, especially my Doctor Who and BBC videos, that I do a comparison, and I'm going to do a comparison just so you can see a little bit of the new film, and I want to compare it against the same film sequence from the original PAL tape that came out in 1990. And I want you to see, just for folks like us who've been watching for a long time, and for folks who are newer fans, you can kind of see what we had to deal with all those years ago and how good we actually have it. Take a look at this.
Where are we? We're back in history, Jamie. One of the most terrible times on the planet Earth. Quick, down there! Jamie!
Isn't that fun? Let me know if you like these reviews. If you want me to review more Doctor Who content, and opposed to just the Doctor Who and BBC video stuff, because as I mentioned on the Doctor Who and BBC video stuff that I do, I tend to say I don't actually try to review them. I just try to talk and reminisce about the time. So let me know if you want more, because I plan on doing the Savages as well. And if you want to, please feel free to reach out to me, leave a comment on YouTube, all the usual stuff. Please do so. I'd appreciate it. I'd like to know your thoughts on it. I get a little worried about doing a Doctor Who review, because everyone has such a strong opinion on it, and because we love it, right? We love it. And if you're not a fan of it, let me know, but please be constructive about it, please. That's all I ask, because there's people who put a lot of work into this, and just because it might not be our cup of tea doesn't mean that it's not good or that it's not well made. And I just want to make sure that is that is thought about. And once again, feel free to consider joining my Patreon. That's where you can get the live console room war games video, which I think is pretty good, and a lot of other stuff there as well that we're putting up there, including different paperwork, radio times, stuff like that. It starts as low as $3 a month. Please consider doing so. Now, as I end these videos, I tend to end them by a shot of me putting the release back on the shelf. That's what I do for all the non-Doctor Who releases. And because I want to follow suit, I'm going to do that here. But that, to me, actually brings up a really good question, and I'm not having to go at Doctor Who fans, because this is something that I actually have to consider as well. And what that is first of all, my main Doctor Who media shelf is what I call a living shelf, meaning that it started back in the VHS days, and when DVD came, like a story came out on DVD, I'd remove the VHS story, put the DVD story in its place. I only have one version generally of every story on the shelf. So when a collection gets put out, I'll take out all those DVDs and put the collection on that shelf. So something like the War Games in color, do you put that just beside Spearhead from Space, or do you put it somewhere else? Because for me, I end up putting it somewhere else, and that's just me. One last thing I want to say before going is that, speaking of Spirit from Space, after watching the War Games in color, I ended up watching Spearhead from Space from the Season 7 collection. And I just want to say how much I love the color grade, the new color grade for Spearhead. I think it's very cool. And I don't mean cool like, ooh, cool, far out. I mean, it is cool. But it's also, like, everything about it is just a more cool temperature to it. And watching it after this version of the War Games, if you haven't done so, I'd highly recommend that. That is actually a real fun way to a kind of a nice continuation to the War Games in color, is especially with that new one, and especially how the War Games ends, that fills in some gaps and then picks up with Spirit from Space. Give it a shot. It's kind of fun. So as far as where I put this on the shelf, I don't put it with the broadcast stories. I put it after the run of Doctor Who, including the new series, but it's still on my shelf. And it goes right next to my Steelbooks of the Daleks, which is where it's going right now.